Good morning, and thank you for joining today's webinar hosted by Pantera Lithium and Energy Exploration Technologies. We're here to discuss last week's ASX release announcing Pantera's $40 million sale of the Smackover Lithium Project to EnergyX, a deal that not only realizes significant value but also deepens exposure to the future of global lithium supply. I'm joined by Pantera's CEO and Executive Chairman, Barnaby Egerton-Warburton, and EnergyX's CEO and founder, Teague Egan. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Jane.
Barnaby, let's begin with you. So why is this transaction a game changer for Pantera?
Thanks, Jane. Thanks for having us and putting on this webinar as well. Okay, why is this a game changer for us? Well, this deal is not just the sale, it's a leverage pivot. What it does is it allows Pantera to convert our asset into a mix of liquid capital and while retaining upside to EnergyX's execution and technology, and our exposure to both recovery in lithium prices, and EnergyX's advanced project in Chile, the Black Giant project, and their project in the Texas side of the Smackover.
Thanks, Barnaby. And look, so Teague, EnergyX is acquiring 35,000 acres in Arkansas. Why was this acquisition so strategic for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So EnergyX started as a technology company. I started the company in 2018. So we've been around for about 7 years now. But the first 5 years of that were exclusively focused on developing the best direct lithium extraction technology. We've tested over 40 brines from around the world, lots being in the Lithium Triangle down in South America, in Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, and then several up in the United States, including several from the Smackover Formation. In 2023, we strategically decided that we wanted to vertically integrate because we felt like we had the best in class DLE technology. We were running pilots at that time. We were getting great results, producing 99.9% battery grade lithium. And we were starting to do engineering to figure out the costs. Ultimately, we acquired our first asset in Chile, which was 100,000 acres, in a salar that's the closest salar to Atacama. It's a great resource. It came out to be up to 9.8 million tons of LCE. And we're developing that project that Barnaby just mentioned, which is called Project Black Giant. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. However, we felt like it was in the company's best interest to A, diversify our portfolio, and B, mitigate risk by having a domestic resource in the United States. Based on our first 5 years of talking to all of the resource owners who we intended to license our technology to throughout the United States, we built conviction that the Smackover Formation was the area in the United States that we wanted to be in. And in 2024, we executed our first deal, which Barnaby also mentioned is on the Texas side of the Smackover. And we acquired 12,500 acres of mining tenements, as well as 330 acres of surface where we have the ability to build a mega refinery. 12,500 acres is a good amount, but our aspirations are much larger than that. We want to build our Smackover position up to 100,000 acres. And this transaction with Pantera to bring another 35,000 acres into that project is a great step forward. And I think it also gives exposure on the Arkansas side of the Smackover. Yeah, I think that we're really excited about what this collaboration can mean, as well as some of the other groups that have already done some of the pre-work in determining the royalty rate in Arkansas, in leading the path on unitization of some of this acreage. So, as we think about Project Lone Star, which is the name of our US Smackover based project, we already have a pilot plant in Austin that we're bringing brine from wells that are adjacent to some of these properties, producing battery grade lithium that's being qualified by cathode makers today. Um, and building a much larger demonstration plant that's co-located with the resources up in the Smackover. So we're making great progress towards that commercialization, and we obviously need the resource base to feed into the plant and the project, and that's exactly what this transaction helps achieve.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for the update there. And look, let's jump into some Q&A. And again, webinar attendees, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen if you've got questions for the gentleman on the call. First one here. So, Barnes, I'm going to go to you for this. So, what does this mean for Pantera shareholders in the long term?
Also, great question, whoever has asked that question. I think what this means for PFE Pantera shareholders is that our shareholders will have exposure to one of the first commercial DLE producers um, um, that are available, that's out there. Teague's project, Black Giant, is proposed to be in production in 2027. We've seen lithium prices fall away from 80,000 a ton down to around 8,000 a ton. There are many predictions and forecasts on when we see a recovery in lithium price. The bulk of those sit around 2027, 2028. So Pantera shareholders and Pantera will be a shareholder of EnergyX as it goes into production of that project. So we get exposure to longer term exposure to EnergyX itself, its project, and the recovery in lithium prices.
Thank you for that, Barnaby. Another one just for you, actually. So, will Pantera be delisted after this sale?
Okay, absolutely not. I've had a few questions along those lines. So, absolutely not. The way this transaction is being structured is such that we'll be selling Daytona Lithium, our sub, and we will then go and look for, and we have been looking at other assets in the critical minerals and battery metals area. So, absolutely, Pantera will not be delisted.
Thank you. This one's coming through a few times, actually, and Teague, I'll go to you for this one. So, what does EnergyX's IPO timeline look like?
It's a great question, and I get that question very often as well. Obviously, we're still a private company that I think has helped us a lot in terms of our capital raising ability and maturation. The last thing that I want for EnergyX and all the shareholders that we have today is to expose ourselves and be like a speculative public company that's not producing commercial revenue. We've seen what's happened with other companies in the battery material supply chain or kind of like energy transition that went public and kind of, there was a big SPAC craze a few years ago, and all these companies went public before they had commercial projects. And there's just too much speculation involved with something like that and a lot of downside risk. And we've seen what's happened with, stock prices basically dropping to the bottom. And that's not something that I want for all of the shareholders and investors who have invested in EnergyX. So the way that I think about it today is the earliest that we would consider a go public event is once we have commercial plants that are producing lithium and producing commercial revenue, which of course Barnaby just mentioned. Our targets for that is end of 2027. Not to say that we absolutely will go public in 2027 when that happens, or hope that that happens. But that's like the key milestone that myself and some of the major shareholders, I think, are working towards before we would consider a commercial or an IPO event.
Thank you, Teague. Again, another one that's come through a few times. So, what does EnergyX bring to the Smackover that Pantera couldn't do alone?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I think that Pantera has done an excellent job thus far. And even though Barnaby lives over in Australia, I somehow see him like 3 or 4 times a year over in the Smackover. And we went together to some of these royalty hearings. So I'm shocked at how much Barnaby travels over to the Smackover. He also has a few team members that are in Texas and Arkansas, and some boots on the ground, which is very helpful. Um, EnergyX is based in Austin, Texas, a short drive away from, this project region, and we have nearly 100 employees that are working in Austin at our pilot plant, our R&D facility, and kind of our business back office and project development teams. They're helping develop what we call Project Lone Star today, which of course consisted of the 12,500 acres and now the additional 35,000 acres. And aside from all of that manpower that it takes to execute on a project, we're engaged with top tier third parties. So for our project in Chile, we partnered with Worley, which is a top tier engineering firm that completed our pre-feasibility study. And we're working with the same top engineering folks at Worley that are working on the Project Lone Star pre-feasibility study. So bringing in great third parties in addition to our team, I think is another kind of box that we can check. And then, finally, what's most important for EnergyX is the technology portfolio that we bring and our ability to completely vertically integrate a project, right? This is something that not even the other majors in the region can do. We all know that Standard Lithium is licensing their technology from Coke, and Coke even sublicenses their adsorption resin from China. Um, we make our own adsorption resin in-house as well as all the other consumables in our technology portfolio. The other major oil and gas companies that people on this call probably know are also looking to other parties to license the DLE technology. Um, so the fact that we have all of that in-house makes us a really attractive partnering company on this. I think controlling as much of the supply chain uh, and being able to control your own destiny is really important. That's the main reason that we went out and started acquiring our own resources because we had this great technology and we were making the consumables, and then we were missing that third piece. So I think EnergyX really brings the full package, and I'm excited to keep Barnaby and the other folks on Pantera on board because they really do know the Arkansas dynamic closely. And we're already talking about where to drill wells. We bring capital to the picture. Um, and we're excited to get started drilling wells as soon as possible and bringing up that brine, which will feed our pilot and demonstration plants. Um, there's a lot of things that we bring, and there's a lot of things that Pantera brings, and I think that together we're stronger and going to be able to execute on this project.
Thank you for that, Teague. Sorry, bear with me. There's quite a few questions coming through. Barnaby, I'm going to go to you for this one, obviously. So, what new opportunities is Pantera exploring?
Okay. We've been looking at quite a few. Obviously, we've been sort of very much head down in this talking through and examining this transaction with EnergyX. So we do see a lot of projects. We do see a lot of opportunities. And now we've signed with EnergyX, we can really start looking at those. But we've had a bit of a bend towards the US. It is the place to be in critical minerals and minerals at the moment, I feel. We're very aggressively looking at projects. That's all I can say at this point in time.
Thank you, Barnaby. Another question that's come up is about tax implications. So what are the tax implications of a share distribution if EnergyX does IPO?
Okay, so it is a good question, and it's a bit early to be too specific on that. What I will say is that the way this transaction was structured, and Teague and I spent many nights going through it, going, well, let's do it this way, let's do it that way, let's do it this way, and so therefore we got to the point where it is structured such that Pantera shareholders right now have no tax implication for them. As Teague has just described a few minutes ago, at that point in time where EnergyX did decide or does decide to IPO, Pantera can do a distribution to its shareholders. The tax implication at that point in time would be that not straight away, but Pantera shareholders would have effectively received a dividend, and so they'll have a tax liability. The reason we've held this in Pantera is to avoid that at this point in time for our shareholders.
Thank you, Barnaby. Okay, question here, Teague. I'm going to go to you for this one. So is EnergyX looking to license the DLE technology internationally?
Yeah, absolutely. So our whole business model initially was to build, quote unquote, a better mousetrap, and license that to existing resource owners. Uh, we ran into some headwinds doing that. You know, these big mining companies are A, resistant to change, very old line thinking. B, have invested a lot of CapEx into their existing production plants. But we're seeing new entrants come into the picture, the Rio Tintos, the Exxons, the POSCOs. And these companies are all excited about using DLE technology. They've, you know, I wouldn't, pledged isn't the word, but that is their intention, their stated intention. And while our two projects, Black Giant in Chile and Lone Star in the United States, are our main focus, we still see licensing as a big revenue opportunity. You know, assuming that we can get the type of economics that we feel we deserve, that we know that we deserve based on having best in class DLE technology. So we are continually testing for other companies, and these are long sales cycles as well because they are obviously big capital investment decisions. But we are in discussions and exploring licensing both internationally and domestically of our technology stack to third parties. And, you know, I think that the reason that I've come to that conclusion is because there's enough lithium out there. There's enough demand for lithium out there that the supply, even though the price is low today, like the demand is still super high. And without kind of some of the price manipulation of China, we believe the price will go back up. But like Rio Tinto is going to get their technology from someone. Exxon is going to get their technology from someone. We might as well try our best and throw our hat in the ring to have that be us and, you know, make some revenue from that. So we're open to licensing and yeah, I mean that obviously could change like depending on market dynamics. But as of today, we're open to licensing our technology to third parties.
Thanks, Teague. We're answering a lot of the questions here that are coming through, I think through all of the questions, but I think, Barnaby, we didn't hear from you on this. So why do you believe that this is a better path than developing Smackover alone?
Um, And that's great. It's a great question. It's a question I've had over the last few days, probably 20, 30 times. Um, Developing a Smackover, developing this kind of project, these brine projects, costs hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in capex. So for a small company like Pantera, we would have had to do multiple rounds, dilutive rounds to current shareholders. And with the way the market has been treating lithium stocks in Australia, which has been nothing short of brutal. The raising money at 5 cents and then raising money at 2.5 cents, then raising money at a cent and then half a cent. And then, that's the trajectory we saw ourselves going before we saw a recovery. So then when you look at EnergyX, and as Teague has just described, EnergyX has its own DLE tech. EnergyX has got real partners and has been funded, and it has investors like GM, POSCO, ENI already. And they've got a large team. Teague mentioned before there's over 100 employees. I've been to their two facilities in Austin. They're extremely impressive. So bring EnergyX in to sort of take the lead and put their team to work on our project saves Pantera and Pantera shareholders from this mass dilutionary effect. It puts funding into the project and it gives us, it's a little bit of a cliche, but two bites of the cherry with what EnergyX is doing in Chile, and then what we can do and what EnergyX can do in the Smackover in Texas and Arkansas. So, being a large shareholder of Pantera myself, and trying to protect those kind of positions for shareholders, we just felt as a board and a company that this was a good transaction.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just next one here. So there's a question just saying, how did you price EnergyX as a private company? And why did you choose $9.50 per share?
That's a great question. So EnergyX has utilized so in the course through the course of EnergyX, we've raised over $130 million. And we've done that through private placement fundraising from some of the big institutional investors like Barnaby mentioned, General Motors, POSCO, which is the big Korean steel and battery supply chain company, as well as Eni, the global oil and gas company headquartered in Italy. But we've also been really successful in raising money from retail investors through Regulation A, which is an SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission of the U.S. regulated format of raising capital. And we recently launched the Regulation A at $10 a share. We've already raised several million dollars through that mechanism. So this was a discount to our current fundraising round that is live and investors are participating in today.
Wonderful. I'm just having a quick look through the rest of the Q&A.
And quickly on that, by the way, we obviously have to file with the SEC, and we have public filings, so people can go on EnergyX's website and see kind of our Form 1A and SEC filings for all of that as well.
Wonderful. Look, I think there's another question here, actually. Sorry, it just popped up. Take for you, how much available cash does EnergyX currently have? And to continue operations.
Yeah, so I believe that as of our last audited financials, which were 2024, we had around $36 million in the bank. I believe that as of today, that's somewhere between 15 and 20 million dollars in the bank today. So those are round about the rough cash numbers.
Okay, gentlemen, look, I think that's covered most of the questions that we've had today, and we are about to wrap up. So I think any final thoughts, Barnaby, if you've got anything to add?
Um, Yeah, I guess I would just reiterate that it's been very tough for every investor in lithium companies in on the ASX. Um, I run on Iris a portfolio of lithium companies, and it's been extremely brutal. We just weren't getting the attention we needed. We have also talked to some of the larger companies out there that may or may not have been mentioned on this call. Um, and they play hardball and push you around, and they're very slow. As Teague said, the bigger the company, these companies are big and they're big, slow moving. They hate change. And then, in getting to know Teague and EnergyX and his team, they're very aggressive. They go after things. They do what they say they're going to do, and they don't wait for approval from the big boys to do it. So we like that attitude. We like that. It's a very Australian kind of junior attitude and methodology. And so I think we're a good fit. And it gives Pantera life and it gives us exposure. And that's what you want for your shareholders.
Absolutely. Teague, anything from you?
I'm just excited to get started. Uh, our goal is for Project Lone Star to have its first commercial train, producing 12,500 tons of lithium in 2028. That's right around the corner. And then 50,000 tons by 2030. And I've been at this for 7 years now. And you know, it's almost shocking how long it takes to actually develop like true deep tech technology. Like a lot of people think that developing DLE like should have happened overnight or something like that, but we have 30 to 50 PhDs like in the lab, like, trying to figure out this stuff, and like we figured it out, and now we're in a great position, and we're acquiring world-class assets, and this is, a world-class asset, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be partnering with Barnaby and Pantera on this. Um, and I'm just ready to throw some holes in the ground and see what kind of lithium brine is hopefully, fingers crossed, underneath this acreage in Arkansas. So yeah, I can't wait to get started.
Wonderful. Well, look, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And to everyone that's involved in on the call today, thank you for your time as well. If we've missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But we look forward to hosting you again next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jane.
guys.